There's a video button.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah, it's
And then
also
when
it's
you,
also
when
on
you
the
get in
top.
there, there's a live button. But after that, I have no idea. I don't know if you can launch from there or how that works.
Okay.
I mean, there are live presentations going on, but I don't have a clue how you actually start one in there.
Okay.
And so,
It shows that we're live on both. Yep.
You did something right.
Well, if I could find it on Facebook, I'd be happy.
What if you if you search the Twin Cities Division Facebook page and then actually click on the announcement you made? Does it give you the link via the post? Maybe not as an administrator though. I don't know.
we are showing up on YouTube live right now.
We are. Yes, I know. Yeah, I know that. Okay, that's good.
Semi live.
And we are on Facebook also. Good. Okay. And our tool is here. So Tom Tennyson is here. Art Sewell is here. As long as Art's right there. Art, did you see the proposed artwork for the 75th anniversary car? There's Colin. Good. This year at the convention, it's going to be the 75th anniversary of the Thousand Lakes region. And so Art asked me to come up with some artwork for a 75th anniversary car. So I've sent that out to the TLR board to look at. Hopefully they'll like it because it's easy. If they wanted something complicated, they should have gotten somebody more talented than I. But the tailors here are good. Yeah. Thank you, Randy. So I was thinking about that when you're doing a 75th anniversary of a car. How would you? What car would you choose? Because that's 1949 to 2024. So I tried to take a car that was kind of right in the middle, and I thought I would see what that had, how that worked. So I sent down a 4427 or something like that. At any rate, one of the covered hoppers, 3-bay covered hoppers that was first done in the 60s, mid 60s, and then did I don't know. I don't need to do anything else. So so this hopper was one of the first jumbo hoppers, 4427. It was introduced in the early 60s, early to mid 60s, and it ran up into the, into the 2000s, albeit, the newer ones were taking over the fancier stuff, but it was still out there. So a granola or a grain hopper. He's messing with me, isn't he? Randy, is there a granola hopper?
Canola, maybe.
Oh, canola.
Mm-hmm.
Got to get it to the market somehow, don't they?
Canada. Canada.
And what is canola?
Like canola oil, the seed. You see the yellow fields up in Manitoba and Alberta.
Oh,
It's beautiful.
okay.
It's a beautiful field. It's all yellow.
Okay. Well, there you go. I see here that we've got 14 watching on YouTube, and I can't tell. There's some number on Facebook, but I can't tell how many that is. So if you guys know, this is something new we're trying, and so if it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll go back to something else. But Randy, you want to take her away, and I'll put up the agenda for you.
Yep. Welcome to the January meeting of the Twin Cities Division. Thanks for joining, everybody. We got guest speaker Greg Terhaar tonight, and I guess we can go over some of the announcements. You brought up old business calendar out there, Ken. Is there any old business?
No, just
old business.
No, just the calendar that you have. That's the only old business
okay.
we have.
Okay, so skipping past everything that's happened already. Tonight we've got, like I said, Greg Terhaar. Greg is going to give his presentation about his Bonanza Valley and Western. He's been in 40 plus years of model railroading. But we'll get into that later anyway. Let's see, February 24th, January, February. I guess the March, April. Okay. The next Zoom meeting, it's a Zoom meeting. It's probably going to be the same format on StreamYard here and live streamed over YouTube and Facebook Live, assuming we can get that working. This is going to be February 8th. We've got Pat. I'm drawing a blank here. Let me check my Discord.
For February,
I just talked to him this morning.
Is Chris going to be able to do that?
Chris, we haven't rescheduled Chris yet. I'm tempted to have him come in as a guest speaker or a guest on Crossing Gate if it's possible.
Good, yeah.
We're always looking for guests on there anyway. I should know this by heart. I've talked to this guy for a year. Oh, Pat Fleming. Sorry, Pat, if you're out there. Pat's out of Duluth. He was actually at the last convention in Bloomington for the regional. He's going to be doing a presentation on LCC and kind of an overview of LCC and the work that he's been doing. He's been doing hardware and software work in the area of the layout command control, which is kind of a layer that's, if you're familiar with DCC and like the LocoNets and all the other NCE stuff, it's a standardized CAN-based, what's CAN stand for? It's a area network. Anyway, it's the kind of the similar systems that run in your cars for running the electricity or running the communications through the computer systems. But that's being promoted as a kind of a generic standardized backbone for the DCC systems. Going to take the load off of the signals going through the track and standardize the other signals going to the signals and that type of stuff. Terminal controls. So that's coming up February 8th. And then we've got February 24th is the next Twin Cities Division Operators Retreat. Greg Dahl's heading that up. Make sure you get in your registration for that. Is that information out there yet, Ken?
Yes, it is.
Everything's
on the calendar.
Okay. I think it's what we're asking, what, $10 for that?
Yep.
So signups are open for that. March 14th, we'll have our first in-person meeting of the year for the Twin Cities Division meetings at the Perkins in Bloomington. I know some of you guys were there for the last one at Perkins. They have a nice room in back. That's March 14th, which is Pi Day, but it's unfortunately it's on a Thursday, so Perkins free pie is on Tuesdays. So let's see, March 16th is the Modelers Retreat. I think we've got the registration out for that too, don't we, Ken?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So if you've never been to the Modelers Retreat, make sure you check in on it. Bring works in progress. The more in progress, the better. Of course, finished products are nice too, but we really liked seeing the things that you guys are working on. Let's see, there'll be 8 clinics, I think. Joe Minish is lining that up. I'll be doing a clinic on my model or my, well, assuming the schedule works out, I might have to check with Joe on that. I was going to be doing a presentation on the Grand Rapids depot that I'm working on.
Right.
I think, have we published the list of presentations for that yet, or is that still kind of in flux?
No, I believe we do, but just
Okay.
I can go through it. It's Jeremy Schumacher on enhancing track work.
Okay.
It's Tom Gazier on moving red dirt.
That's is that the reserve mining history one?
No, there's also going to be one on reserve mining history. So
is he doing that one?
History. Yes, he is.
Okay, so he's doing 2 of them.
Yep. And then just to keep on the topic of magnetic dirt, I'm going to do one on the Cuyuna Range.
Wow.
Randy talked about modeling the GN depot. Joe Binish is going to do one on building a PBM, and that stands for passenger, baggage, and mail car, a Soo Line car. We're going to have a clinic with a hands-on component on painting small figures, and Ken Borowski has actually found a bag of N-scale figures. So if you're an N-scaler, you can paint some figures. And then Lester Brewer is going to give a clinic on building the Randolph curve, which is an addition he did to his layout. One of the other things that's really neat is on Friday night, Jim Brown is going to give a slide presentation on his rail fanning that he's been doing. He lives down in southern Minnesota, so we're going to get Winona and all sorts of areas down there, Chicago Great Western. These are pictures that those of us that are in the northern parts, the cities in northern, we don't see that much. But he's got 400 pictures. He's setting up to do an hour and a half, but he says he's going to have plenty of extras. I'm just telling you, I'm going to have the keys to the building. So as long as he's showing good slides, I'm going to be sitting there with the door open. So plan on that, and the registration form is on the website, or you can send a note to info@tcdnmra, and I will send you one out personally.
What was the cost for that this year?
Still $15.
Cheap at twice the price.
Mm-hmm.
You can probably drop that slide now, Ken.
Okay.
We're pretty much through that anyway, Still got some more announcements here yet, but
Yeah, actually, our March 16th or 3/16 is a scale day. So I know you're all going to want to you're all going to want to celebrate that with me. So so there you go. You mentioned Skills Day, right?
not yet. No,
Okay, go ahead.
we
Sorry.
just wrapped up March and getting into April. I think
Okay.
April 13th. You said was the
Yes,
next
sir.
Skills Day coming up.
Yep. Here's a picture from last year where Marilyn is showing people how to make trees. We did static grass. I don't know what the topics are going to be for this year, but that'll be out real quick. That'll be on the internet.
Yeah, if anybody has any suggestions, make sure you get them
Yep.
either through the info at TCD or any of our other usual hangouts,
bet.
Discord or the Facebook
Exactly.
page. Or,
Yep. And then I think you're on to. Are you on to the convention yet?
we actually skipped ahead with April 11th is the April TCD monthly meeting
Okay.
at the Park Tavern in St. Louis Park.
Hmm.
I don't remember who organized that or set that one up. Is that?
I don't know.
I think it's kind of a general get together and our
Yep.
typical kind of social hangout type meeting
Yep.
events. And I don't know if there's an activity plan for that yet or not.
Well, we'll have to ask Randy. He knows
yeah.
all that stuff.
Wait a minute. Also in April coming up, we've got the TCD spring layout tours in the Northeast and Southwest metro area.
Mm-hmm.
Rich Ramirez is organizing that for the Northeast, and the last update here says we're still looking for
Yep.
an organizer for the Southwest tours.
Yep, we'll get that.
It's always surprised me at the last convention, I got busy and actually missed all the layout tours. So I'm kind of looking forward to actually trying to get out to some of these spots.
Right.
I've got a hot list of things that I want to see yet, but I know there's a lot of other ones coming up out there that I don't even realize are out there yet. Let's see, then May, like I said, wraps up April. Then May 7th is the TCD annual meeting. We're going to try to get that in before the regional convention on the 16th.
Yes.
So it'll be that week before there. I do believe we got 2 board positions open, and of course we're always looking for volunteers for stuff. So I don't know if we have a location for that yet. Do we, Ken?
No, I think we're just talking about the possibility of place in Hopkins, but that'll be announced real soon.
I know typically we've been doing, at least for the last couple of conventions, we've been doing the annual meeting at the convention. Yeah. But it's kind of nice to get it out of the way because it's just one less thing to worry about while we're trying to do other stuff at the convention.
There's always so much going on at the convention.
Yeah, it's a head spinner. There's so much packed into those days that it's hard to keep up. So it's like you're always constantly running from one end of the hotels to the other and trying to catch clinics and presentations. And speaking of which, May 16th and 20th is the Sawdust City Hauler, kind of like that title, the Thousand Lakes Regional Convention for 2024. That will be in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I think, actually, I haven't checked the regional site. Have we released? It's after January. Have we released the registration forms for that yet?
I believe it's on our site, and I don't know if I haven't checked to see if it's on the regional site yet, but okay. We have sent it to them.
I think with the information for hotels and stuff is out there too now.
It is, yep.
It's a 0, not an O for the code. Actually, I tried the code, and I think I actually had the version that had the 0 in the access code when I was trying to register online. But if you call the front desk and just mention the NMRA convention or the regional convention, they'll get you hooked up. It's $85 a night, something like that. Let's see. That's being run by. I'm just terrible with names. Who's running the
Dave
regional
Menard,
convention?
Dave
Right.
and Bonnie Menard are the
Dave and Bonnie.
chairmans, and got a good crew, and of course they're part of the Twin City division, so we're helping them out with that, and it's going to be a great event.
Yep, there'll be a lot of activities there too, and they got the Chippewa Motor Car Association.
Yep.
That's the speeder stuff, right?
Yes.
Speeder rides. Not sure how long those are. I'm assuming it's more than just a quarter mile up and down a straight track.
Oh, it's like 7 miles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've been collecting information on that, and we'll put that up. It'll all be up on the website real soon.
Yeah. So once again, got a bunch of clinics, got our banquet and celebration rooms. The hotel is the Sleep Inn and Conference Center, 29 Pines Restaurant, kind of a combination name. That's where everything will be based out of this year. Registration in the next Fusey. I don't think I missed much there.
Nope.
And then fast forward to August 4th through 11th, there's the Surfliner Convention in Long Beach, California. I know some people already said they're going to be going. I don't think we'll be making it out there, but at some point I'd like to make one of these regional conventions. The last one, I've only been an NMRA member for 3 years now, but I remember going to the one in St. Paul. That was at the XL Center, wasn't it? Or
Yep.
Was it 90 something or other?
99, I think. Yeah.
99. All I know is I was impressed with the amount of activity going on there too, even though I only saw a part of it as a non-member at that point. It's mainly drifting in as just another railroad show. I didn't really realize what was going on. I think I hit one in St. Louis, probably 87 maybe.
Wow.
When the Twins were down there.
Huh.
We were living down in my brother-in-law's basement at the time looking for work. I was applying for McDonnell Douglas or something. That's all I got on the TCD activities. I think we published a lot of the other shows and stuff. I don't know if I want to go through some of those yet, Ken. Or...
No, I think that's okay. And I'm going to get out
This is mainly for the TCD events tonight anyway. So
yeah, I'm going to get a newsletter out real soon. So you want to do the next one, new business? See if anyone else has anything to announce.
I think we get through this chat on here.
We always pick them up later. That's no problem.
Yeah, feel free to add anything you think of on the live chat.
Yep. And then we talked about the February 8th meeting, which is good with Pat Fleming, right? That'll be cool.
Yes.
Good. All right. So I'll go on to the presentation then.
Let's do it.
Randy, is that the next thing?
I believe so. That's all I got here.
Okay.
Something.
Now, if you were on with us last night on the Crossing Gate Live, we had a great presentation, and it was on. Michael Thorson was talking to us about his evolution and the new layout that he's designing, and the Crossing Gate about 6 weeks ago had a whole episode on starting over, being brave enough brave enough or crazy enough to tear down your layout and start all over. And so following up on that, we've got Greg Terhaar, and he's going to there he is. He's going to give us a presentation on the Bonanza Valley and Western. So Greg, if you want to say anything, and then just tell me when you want me to put the slides up.
Yeah, I just appreciation for the invite. It's kind of exciting. I've been a model railroader now. I turn 52 tomorrow, so I've been a model railroader for 42 years officially. Although prior to that, I have a pretty typical trajectory as most kids. My older brother had a Lionel train set, and some of my earliest memories were wintertime setting it up, and in our shared bedroom, we would turn the lights off, and he would put a flashlight on it, and it would project the Lionel train set up on the wall. And I think that seared itself in my brain. And in November of '83, on a holiday or family trip when I was 11 years old to Wilmer, Minnesota, to go shopping, it was a fateful day. We stopped at the Ben Franklin, and there at that time, Ben Franklin was selling some trains. And at that month of November of 1983, the cover of Model Railroader, which I had never seen before, said "Ride the San Juan Central," Malcolm Furlow's layout. And I don't think I've been the same since. Yeah, it's, and you can put up the slides, Ken and Randy. It's fine. So yeah, I've born and raised in central Minnesota. In fact, I'm back on the family farm. It hasn't been an active farm since the early '90s. My father passed away just over 4 years ago. And then a year ago, I bought the place, subdivided the home site and bought the farm site from my mom. Lived in Nevada for a dozen years, got really acquainted with the Western railroading, came back to Minnesota for 6, then 3 down to Texas, got very acquainted with Texas railroading. And now I've been back to Minnesota for 3 years. Been very blessed, very fortunate to just do a lot of fun stuff. I've built a lot of model railroads over the years, but nothing like what I'm doing right now. This is technically, I would consider just the small to mid-sized model railroad, but nothing I've ever done has been sort of this ambitious. It's always been either small, 4x8, run in circles type of thing. I've dabbled in 3-rail O scale, N scale, a lot of HO scale. I was introduced to Ray Grosser back in the mid '90s when he was touring with his Grosser's Nostalgia Trip. And because the farm I live on is intersected by the Sioux line, I've always been a Sioux line person. So Ray became he and his wife became my just essential hobby mentors. And so most of my focus for the 40 years has really been on the Sioux. The Bonanza Valley and Western really came out of an idea I had while living in Texas. And you can switch to the next slide because it kind of shows you a little bit of the trajectory on, influences. And the top number of them are all really freelancers that have had heavy influence on me. And the last number, more of the prototype modelers. And honestly, it's a list that goes on and on. Again, just, throw a pebble in the pond and it just ripples out, right? But the Bonanza Valley and Western was kind of an idea. Having studied history in college and gotten my degree in it, I've always just loved the Sioux line. And when I moved back here a few years ago from Texas, I had this notion that I wanted to do something a little different. Instead of always looking backward and looking around and not seeing really any of the infrastructure that I used to know and remember from my childhood in the 70s and 80s, and the great time I spent as a kid trackside at the Bruton Farmers Elevator with our dear friend, family friend, who was the general manager of it, and crawling over stuff. And I hate to admit that now, but we spent a lot of time crawling on grain cars, and you can never do that now, right? But I just had the desire to just really try something different. And this summer, as I was really starting to hone in on what I wanted to do with my newly acquired basement, I reached out to Ray, asked him if he would custom paint a couple locomotives for me. I was really inspired by the Twin Cities and Western, really inspired by the Red River Valley and Western. I had an uncle who worked for the BN. Great, he fired on the Great Northern out of Breckenridge when it was still steam. I became a locomotive engineer when it was Burlington Northern. I retired, and so I'm very familiar with the Wahpeton Breckenridge, and just fell in love with the Red River Valley and Western. And it kind of the idea just started churning in my head that it would be completely plausible for there to be another railroad in that group of family, that family of railroads, because they're all owned by the same corporation, the Oaks Development Corp. And you can switch it to the next slide. And I asked Ray to paint me a couple locomotives, honestly, with the thought that over time he'd build me or paint me a fleet of, I had about 5 to 10 locomotives in mind, and he delivered the first two to me at the end of August, early September, and within a week he's calling me, telling me he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So it absolutely just, aside the fact that it was kind of devastating news, losing such a friend and a mentor, it just really solidified what I wanted to do with this concept. And really the concept, after 40 years, you just kind of know what you like and don't like as a model railroader. And by the way, please, if there's any, I can't see the scrolling of the if there's any questions, just please ask them. And Ken, if you or Randy could interrupt me at any time, because otherwise I'll just keep babbling on, and I want it to be interactive.
Yeah, don't worry about that. We'll let you know
Awesome.
if something important comes up.
Awesome. Thank you. And so the concept, I really tried to hone in on just something very, very simple and very plausible. And the concept really boiled down to a proto-freelance model railroad operating on the abandoned Sioux Bruton line from Bruton to Duluth. Bruton being my hometown, I was very intimately familiar with it, spent a lot of time kind of studying, looking at that line. There's not much to it. It's very, very small towns along the way. A lot of you, if you're not familiar with central Minnesota, might be more familiar with like Moose Lake. Moose Lake would have been one of the bigger, more famous towns along the line, and still has its first class depot, thank God. And that it was a sister railroad to the Twin Cities and Western. And so with that little germ of idea, and for those who are wondering where the Bonanza Valley comes from, Bruton, even though it's kind of flat as a pancake, it's referred to as the heart of the Bonanza Valley. And that must mean I live on the hill somewhere along the edges of it, because you'd be hard pressed to think that we're actually in a valley out here. So that was where the concept came from. And the idea that you could take an abandoned line, which it was abandoned in the late 80s, and in essence do what the Oaks Development Corp did with the Twin Cities and Western, and then with the Red River Valley, kind of target some of these old lines that were shed and redevelop them. Go ahead and click the slide.
Hey, Greg. Oh, never mind. I was just gonna ask you, as I said, I'll let you go.
Oh, it lost. I don't know when you download it. I actually made it lost some detail on there. Unfortunately, that's okay. Right in the center of this photo is, you can kind of see Glenwood, and then to the south and east of Glenwood, as you go towards Minneapolis, there's a little town of Bruton.
It's just a little ways north of Wilmer, right, Greg?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yep. And as the crow flies, that line basically ran from Bruton, south of Little Falls, over through Piers, which was my ancestral hometown, along the south shore of Leech Lake, McGrath, Moose Lake, and then came in south of Superior and made its connections there with the Wisconsin Central portion of the Sioux line. The portion I model is really, and this is where I've struggled a lot, and it's become less of a struggle as I dig into the modeling. I really wanted to pay tribute to Grosser. He on literally all the layouts he built, he named a town after me. There was always a Terhaar on his Terhaar depot on his layout. So I wanted to honor him with the same. And before he died, I was able to construct a second-class depot and put his name on it. And so there was a little bit of a stroke of lightning for me in that the next towns up the line from Bruton are respectively El Rosa and Greenwald. There's not probably 300 people between the two communities. And I thought, well, Greenwald, El Rosa, Greenwald, El Rosa. Well, there's Grosser. So, and if you're familiar with that area, just south of Sauk Center, there is a large black oak wind farm is there. So there is some wind energy, and that's, if you've seen pictures of my layout, you know I've got a little bit of that's one of the signature scenes. So that's kind of where it lies in the map and what I'm trying to accomplish. And why did I asked the question to myself, why does this railroad exist? And it was really to satisfy the growing demand for agricultural products, for energy and for big farm, right? I tried to keep it very focused on a grouping of products that would all technically fall under the Department of Agriculture, whether it's ethanol or fertilizer, cold storage being the outlier. Of course, timber is under the Department of Ag as well. And then wind and solar, those familiar with the Northwestern line out of St. Cloud. They do some staging over just by Rockville when they have solar energy, or a wind energy. They'll put turbines down over by the fitness center there on Highway 23. And I thought, well, what a neat thing to eventually model. So those are the five things. And of course, the outlier, one of the primary things is the fact that it's a direct access to a port. When I was living in Texas, I saw firsthand how the Gulf of Corpus Christi, how much came through that port as far as agricultural products and such. So, that really just solidified the believability and why, why that line, the old Sioux line, Bruton line would be a viable line. So any questions so far?
No, Jim comment about the bridge over Highway 10 and the BNSF south of Little Falls.
Yes, exactly. Yep, by Bolus there. Yes, that was part of the Bruton line.
Yep. Was there was it on Highway 61 that there was another line? There was another bridge over right by Moose Lake, just north of Moose Lake. Isn't there another famous Sioux Line bridge there?
Probably. I'm not sure how it passed over the interstate there. It probably did. I don't recall.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
It would have had to cross over the interstate somehow. So I'm guessing that's it. But
yeah, it because I'm an NP modeler, it went over the NP on a bridge on Highway 61, and then it dropped down and passed underneath 35W. So yep, good stuff.
Okay. You can go ahead and flip the slides.
Okay.
So the layout goal really, and just to clarify, everybody's kind of got their ways of doing things, and I really tried to approach this project as just very focused. If I was getting too cloudy, I was just made an attempt to try to force myself to kind of boil it down to what the heck am I actually trying to do. And as simply as I could state it, create a plausible modern short line railroad. No fluff, no bells, no whistles, just something that when somebody looks at it, aside from the fact that, it might not look totally real to them, they'll say, wow, are you modeling a real railroad? That would always be the ultimate compliment. So go ahead and switch her over. How would I do it? Shoot, I wish you would have. I made so many updates on this, Ken. I wish I would have gotten you the more recent one.
Sorry.
Nope, it's all good. It's all good. and again, these are a list of things that I, in my mind, just said, okay, what is gonna keep me focused on turning this into a plausible concept. And number one was kind of focus on the boring things we drive by, or the mundane things. When you look at model railroading, at least the way I view it, it's not like you're seeing, Grand Central Station out here, right? And even infrastructure wise, there's nothing that sexy anymore. The reality out here is a lot of pole sheds. So you better be okay with seeing a lot of that. And I wanted just that mundaneness. I didn't really want anything to stand out to like a sore thumb. High scenery to track ratio. That's a pretty common thing that people strive for. I wanted it designed for minimal ops, and, focus on few but relevant industries. Again, no fluff, no distraction. The convincing locomotive paint scheme. Again, thank you, TCW and Red River Valley and Western. Fabulous paint scheme. It's kind of a nod of the hat to the old maroon and gold of the Sioux line. So you got to love it. And again, it looks plausible. DCC sound was a must. Purpose and a backstory. You can see in my little fleet there. I've got a deep respect and love for the Minnesota Commercial. My aunt Becky Coates worked for them for years in their office, and I've just always had an appreciation. And I've kind of determined in my own head for my own railroad that anytime the Minnesota Commercial decides they want to mothball or scrap a locomotive, then my little railroad is the home for it. So I've got a fleet of 3 so far, and I imagine that'll grow. Another way that I really honed in on to help me achieve that, something very important to me, was getting the background and the foreground colors right. I worked with Bill Brown from Lark Products. He created a 26-foot long single print backdrop. It was kind of a painful, it's not painful in the sense that a really good backdrop photo printed will, set you back about the cost of a good locomotive. But prior to getting to that, I bought other backdrops that ultimately wound up in the trash bin because I wasn't satisfied. A goal for me was to utilize the most effective materials to achieve proper look, whether it's static grass or most of the gravel I use, or the base coat I use for my roads, gravel roads, comes out of my driveway, and I sift it very, very, very fine. And it has an amazing texture, and the color seems to be just right. I know in the hobby, there's a lot of talk these days about negative space and creating distance to overcome size constraints. One of the ways I'm also doing that, and I'll hold on to that for a second because we'll talk about it. Do you have the track plan, Ken?
I never saw track plan come through, and I don't know where the stuff could have gone to, but you're doing this all in HO?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Negative space, time constraints. If the track plan's not there, then I'll share with you a fact that the layout as it exists is really, it's along 3 walls. The overall room that I have to work with is like 16 by 16. I've got a 16-foot section and a 12-foot section on 2 walls completed. The third space, which is again another approximately 16 by 2 feet, will in essence be the town of Grocer. So this layout really is a one town concept. I'm not attempting to model a very large distance. So in about 48 linear feet, I'm attempting to achieve. And I think that's one of the way I'm trying to overcome some of the size constraints. Interchanges are obviously important. To the south of Grocer is the town of Bruton, which is CP. North of there, of course, you cross through BNSF territory by Little Falls, and then of course up in Duluth, you're going to hit a lot of CN and CP and BNSF.
Hey Ken, I have the new presentation up here if you want me to share.
Oh, switch it over. That'd be so great if you could.
Can you? Is it on the? Can you get it up on StreamYard? I thought I had the new one.
Oops, wrong email. Didn't want to share that one.
I think you'll have to put it on your desktop.
Let's see, November. There it is. Can you see
Is
that?
this one?
Is it
There
presenting?
we go.
There it is. Okay. If you go back a slide again, or
Okay,
actually 2 slides, go one more.
I think you have the controls then, Randy. There you go.
There we go. There we go.
Is that
there we
showing
go.
full screen or is it showing the slides on the side? Not seeing it.
It's the slides are on the side.
Where's this?
It's a blue box on the bottom right-hand side. There you go.
There we go.
Hey, awesome. Okay. Thanks, Randy. Yeah, interchanges, obviously a big deal. Don't need to elaborate on it. Embracing graffiti. You know what? Having modeled 60s through 80s trains for much of my life, graffiti's been something new. And I just, as my eyes opened up to contemporary railroading, it became a very obvious fact. And it's kind of a sub hobby I've actually kind of gotten into, just really paying attention to it and getting inspiration for my own ideas and whatever. And the bigger theme of that is obviously not, for me, I didn't want to ignore the atmosphere of the railroad scene. And certainly that's a hot topic. I mean, Eric Bruman with his Utah belt famously has avoided and said absolutely not to graffiti on his, and he keeps up with the modern era. And he's probably the most notable one to say, heck no to it. So, and then another goal for me to accomplish this, what it was to not be cute. I didn't want to include smoking buildings or the firefighters saving the cats out of trees. I really wanted to just, eliminate any of those things that become a distraction, at least to me, in how I wanted to accomplish making this a plausible railroad. So go ahead and hit the slide. The specs, real quick again, 16 by 16 along 3 walls. It's point to point. Shelf height is 48 inches. That was deliberate. I mean, I go to the lumber yard and everything is in 8-foot lengths. So I knew I wanted 48 was going to be the minimum, but I wanted to maximize my lumber usage. So I've got a 2-foot tall backdrop, 4-foot height. And then that extra 2 feet gave me the cross supports on it's an open grid or open girder type of bench work that I use. Max width is 27 inches at the staging junction. Pico code 70, flex track and turnouts, fascia mounted manual pull throws, the blue points, NEC DCC, and then a 5-track staging located in my workspace area in the furnace room. And it's really designed for one operator. Eventually, once I get the town of Grosser and a small, moderate size yard at Grosser, I envision that it could be a 3 to 4 operators fully realized. But even as I've been test switching on what I have currently, it gives me a solid hour of just of plan. And to me, having a full-time job and pretty much busy on every weekend, that's good. This, again, you guys have to remember, I've never, ever done anything beyond just a small little layout. So I am a complete novice to operations. I'm a complete novice to a lot of things. I've done a lot of scenery and I've run a lot of trains in circles or back and forth on switching layouts. But my only experience operating was a layout I built in Texas that I did a little car card system that I came up with, that I utilized, and the jury's still out. I'm hoping I can make the operators day retreat at the end of February because I'm eager to learn. So you can go ahead and switch it. And if you're just looking at the photos, that top photo shows my little staging yard in my shop area. That was one of the backdrops I had purchased and then might ultimately find a home when I expand the railroad. But for now, it's a nice little backdrop for staging. Here's the track plan I whipped up during the show last night, Ken.
Good.
Yeah, in very, very, very basic. Again, just getting back to my my goals was to keep it very simplistic, very realistic, high scenery to track ratio. I still ultimately had to make some choices on spacing and stuff. I'm not super satisfied with that curve. It's roughly a 24 inch curve, I believe, in that corner. But when you go from 2 feet to 2 feet, you don't have a lot of option, and so it's okay. I can live with it. The only cars that really look super out of place on it are some center beam flats, and they technically never have any reason to go down that spur track toward Freeman Energy into the ethanol plant, so they can avoid it. So,
Okay.
photo backdrop on the ethanol plant there. We were discussing last night after the show. I'm probably 10 years too late on acquiring that Walther's ethanol plant kit. And quite frankly, I unless it was like 20 times the size of that kit, I don't know that I'd be satisfied with it. I want something to be a little more plausible. So again, making that choice, I'd rather use that space, the space I have, to do some foreground detail, maybe some pull type sheds or propane tanks, the fueling station that would sit behind these tank cars, and let the backdrop kind of speak for the building. And anyway, signature scenes, absence of details, a couple that I've really focused on so far: the Damon's Prairie State Natural Area. Again, made up. That's one of my siblings, my younger brother Damon. Hunting is big. This is as close, I think, to cute as I get. We're a big hunting family, and I wanted to pay tribute to him. And I just named I got the sign idea from Thomas on what he's doing on the Split Rock, and I thought, oh, that's clever. So that was a fun little project. And then those are minifig kits. And what's so great is I don't even notice it anymore. But when people do come over and they see that, they're like, oh, that's Damon and his dog Ringo. And I'm like, spot on. I don't even need to say anything. My wife works for an energy company out of Avon, Minnesota. And I did want to just, again, thinking about modern, what the modern feel of railroading looks like. I wanted to pay tribute to her as well. So Freeman Energy is a nod to her family name. And one of the big struggles I had when I was honing in on, it was the timing of everything, of course. I'm sitting here honing in on this concept to do a modern short line, but I've got a half dozen Sioux line locomotives, that range from, F units in maroon and gold to, and it's like, well, what does a guy do? Right. I was that ultimate struggle of how can I run some of my heritage equipment? And as Mr. Grosser was leaving us, the light bulb flashed that, I could not only pay tribute to Ray, but I could turn my second class Sioux Line Depot into the Bonanza Valley and Western headquarters, but then also have a tourist train. And if any of you guys were lucky enough to see Ray and Renee's layout when it toured the country back in the late 90s and early 2000s, they called it Grosser's Nostalgia Trip. And of course, then they settled down and they scrapped the HO1 and built an O-scale version of it, and then ultimately a yard railroad as well. So I thought, you know what? Light bulb went off. Awesome. I can actually create a tourist line that runs on BV&W trackage, but is basically, I guess, what down in Twin Cities where the 261 resides, kind of a similar thing. I can just have that idea, and gives me the opportunity to run some older equipment, some Sioux Line passenger equipment, and just show off some of that fleet that I have. When I get to modeling the town of Grosser and the yard there, I do intend to have some modern shop facilities that are reminiscent of the train sheds of today, where they store old equipment. And I thought that kind of scratches both itches. So that's having my cake a little bit. And ultimately, my goal was to create just a tribute to Ray. I know all of us can share stories about the people who've influenced us in the hobby, and I can't say enough about the man. And it wasn't even about the hobby at the end. Even for most of the 30 years or 25 years I knew him, it was more than that. In fact, most of the time we didn't talk about the hobby. It was about life, and he was really like a second father to me. So just a nod of the hat to him on my layout with a that's a Sioux Parts caboose, one of their resin kits. Fun. I built 3 of those. Well, actually, I think I built 2, and I still got a third in a box. I put one of those behind a fence in front of the depot, and of course, just gives me the opportunity to have a little fun with some of the old stuff. So you can switch.
Somebody asked where you got those round bales.
Yeah, I think they're JL International. Is that a real thing?
JL Innovations.
Innovations. Yes. Sorry. JL Innovations. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And the 1.5 inch gauge, where were those shots taken? Is that at Grocers?
Yeah. Yes. So Ray and Renee lived in Southern Kentucky, and they literally in their retirement built that railroad, starting in 08 is when they sold the HO layout to a club, and then they started the O gauge layout, and then probably in 2012 or 13, somewhere around there, they started building and that's all gone now. Every bit of it. They tore everything down just in time for Ray to leave us. So, and I procured his entire workshop, stuff I will never use. So if I get the joy of seeing you guys sometime or come into a train show, if you guys need old windows, I got stuff I know I'll never use. So, one of my big things doing this for 42 years now, is choosing to have fun. I'll a confession for you guys. There were moments in my hobby life, especially when I had small children and some very, very finely detailed locomotives, that I got very angry with my kids and their small hands on a couple of occasions. There were times in my life that I'm not very proud of, and how I probably treated my own kids when it came to the trains. And long ago, that's been a long time ago. And I committed to myself then and there that I would have fun with this hobby. And if I got distracted, and if I just did a YouTube video recently called "The Art of Losing Focus," pertaining to my losing focus. But it's all about choosing to have fun. And if I'm not feeling something, then I can easily set it aside and do something else. And that applies to my modeling as well. I'm not afraid to redo, like I said, on that backdrop was an example. But part of the redoing for me is I move too fast for my own good. And if I would just slow down just a tick, I'd probably be fine. But I go at a breakneck pace, and then I realize, oh, I could have done it this way, and I should have. Then I'll redo my efforts to some level of satisfaction. But I also try to encourage people not to lose sight of that skills improve with time. I know mine have, and don't be afraid to redo it, especially when it comes to scenery, because in the scheme of things, it's not all that expensive. The other piece of advice, and what I have to remind myself is step away. I worked with a guy who does kits on Etsy. It's a Stoom tram, which is basically a Dutch prototype, not even a prototype, that was purely made up. We came up with that concept based on some similar types of locomotives in the Netherlands, because when I moved to the farm, I wanted to do a garden railroad, but I quickly found out it was kind of backbreaking. I'll eventually get back to it, but we created that Stoom tram, and some additional cars, and it's a lot of fun. But it was a great distraction for a while. And when it's hot outside and I want to be out in my barn and outside playing around, it's something I really enjoyed. And then last winter I did I dabbled in some Kato N scale and did a Japanese layout, which was super fun. That was about a 5 foot by 6 foot and entirely freelance. It's where my Malcolm Furlow came out of me a little bit, and just trying to do something very weird and unique and completely unprototypical, and just had a lot of fun with it. And that was about a 3-month project of just really obsessing over it. And of course, this past summer I tore it down. So, and then lastly, I'd say, building the community. Ken and I were talking last night. I remember back in the late 90s, traveling as a salesperson and reaching out to famous model railroaders, because I didn't know anybody else. The only people you knew were the people who were in the magazines, and you'd get their little bylines in the hobby magazines. Oh, they're from Dallas, Texas, or they're from LA. And it's like you find yourself kind of looking in a phone book and dialing. And I did that on a couple of occasions. Now it's so much easier, and I've just been really, enjoying the podcasts and the social the social media and YouTube and just the network that's available to us in ways that it never was. And that other picture up there, I also have a slight obsession with King and Country 130th toy soldiers, and my thing is to collect Battle of the Bulge toy soldiers and then put them in poses and take black and white photos to make them look real. So anyway, have fun. I say that to you guys because I'm saying it to myself. I always have to remind myself that this is such a fun hobby and with such great people, and here we are. So, and I think that's about it. Unless there's questions about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and I'm an open book.
Great.
Yeah, other than compliments, I don't think there's a lot of immediate questions that we missed along the way here.
Well, you can find me on Facebook. I usually will post on the TC, the Twin Cities site, second section podcast, and then some freelance ones. I've had to force myself to minimize how many of those I post on too. And then I've got a YouTube channel as well called the Bonanza Valley and Western Model Railroad. So please feel free to call. I'm so new to that, and if you look at any of my videos, they're really lousy. But I'm attempting to get better. So
Chris Bell was asking what DCC system you're using. It was NCE, right?
Yep, NCE. And here's the thing. It's funny. I am running these 28 feet currently on 2 wires that are hooked up that I soldered. I intend to do a lot, but I'm blown away by the robustness of DCC and how dirty my track gets. And it's awesome. I am nobody's expert when it comes to wiring or none of it for that matter, but thank God, because I'm so glad that these systems are very robust. I have to say, I've always used Atlas Code 83 in the past. This was my first switch to Code 70, and again, not being Mr. Dexterous, that I learned a couple sour lessons with dealing with the finer track and switches. But I'm learning my lessons, and really like it. If you have experience with the Code 70 Pico, it's quite nice. And I did install.
Converted over to N scale in no time.
What's that?
I said we'll get you converted over to N scale in no time.
Oh, too funny. Well, honestly, when I bit my lip, I built that little Japanese layout in a spare bedroom because of course I bought this old house for my mom, and it has my wife and I, we're empty nesters for the most part. I have one daughter going to college and she still lives here, but empty nest. So I have all these spare bedrooms, and of course I built myself into the room. I literally carried the benchwork in there, not realizing that when I added mountains and scenery, I'd never get it back through the door. So I bit my lip, and tore it out with the exception of I saved a couple scenes. But I'm very much, I imagine a day I will go back to a small little Japanese N scale layout. My sister-in-law is Japanese, so that's part of their reasoning behind it. So very fascinated by it.
So and so on this last slide, we're seeing an engine. That's your paint scheme then, the BV and W.
Yeah, and it was so funny and it's so simple because I ordered up 2 locomotives, a GP 20 and this Jeep 38, both undecorated. I sent them to Ray with the instructions. I ordered up the paint for him, and I forget what decal I found. What I did is I searched online for Red River Valley and Western decals, and I just reached out to the guy and I said, "Hey, can you drop the 2 R's and put a B there?" And he's like, and within, I'm not even talking 5 minutes, he sent me back a proof, and I'm like, spot on. And so I sent all the decals to Ray. The locomotives are actually my scheme originally was to number them in the birth years of my children, my 3 kids, and then my 2 stepchildren. And I got I've got a boy and 2 stepsons, and then two of my own daughters. And so my youngest daughter was born in 2003 and my oldest daughter was born in 1998. And those are the only 2 locomotives that got painted. Not to say that I won't eventually get around, but I've never painted, aside from that 7/8 scale garden layout that I painted those locomotives. I don't have the guts yet to paint locomotives. So I'm probably someday I'll be in search of a painter. And I'm guessing you guys have 1 or 2 that you know.
We do, but the other thing that we, again, talking about Skills Day, we want to help you learn to do things like that.
Yeah.
Anything that'll help you have more fun in the hobby.
I appreciate that. And, saying painting locomotives would be getting to me to have more fun in the hobby at this moment in my life would probably be a teeny bit of a stretch. The fun in the hobby for me is this picture is a great example because it's like adding that graffiti to the car and weathering and making an effort to try to blend scenes and make the overall look right.
Sure.
Yeah. And there's a phrase there's something I really strive for when I model, and that's the absence of something makes it more real in my mind's eye. And so I don't want to tell the whole picture. If you go back, if you look at, someone brought up those hay bales, if you go back to one of those slides, Ken, that shows the bales, I'll kind of share with you what I'm thinking. Yep. There you go. That brings me right back to my childhood, not only square bales, but then round bales. And the temptation to then put either a round baler or a tractor or some activity going on is pretty great. I mean, there's so many great products out there, but for me, the absence of that type of detail tells a bigger story, because then my mind paints the picture of farming and brings me back to my own memories. I don't need to see the tractor out there. And in fact, I drive by farm fields 365 days a year, and 24 times a year, I actually physically see equipment in the fields. You more often don't see anything in fields. So I really, my goal in the presentation of the railroad was to strip away some of that noise and let the viewer kind of paint the picture, see what they want. And it's incredible because people see those round bales. That it's amazing. If I feel like it's validation that if I had that scene filled with dad in the tractor and me on the hay rack and pitching, doing bales, it would fill in the blanks too much. And I'm trying to create a little bit of illusion and draw people into the scene by that absence of detail as much as getting them to hone into the things I want them to see when I do include a detail. So
I think you can say the same thing about tracks too. I mean, how many times do you actually see trains on tracks? Not driving down the road, or
yes,
just vast miles of empty track.
So someone's asking, Chris Bell's asking about the road. Maybe you go back to that last scene because you can see it a little bit. Again, you guys might laugh at me. And again, there's so much discussion online about road materials. That is literally just the plywood, and I painted it the same color that I paint the earth. It's just a taupe gray that I used on a bedroom wall. And then I used
You're like the magician giving away his tricks.
I used colored pencils for the white and yellow lines, and then everything else, and then a Sharpie pen for the cracks in the road, and then it's nothing but powder chalks.
Yeah, before you said plywood.
But it's literally
as soon as you said plywood, it was obvious. But it's
yeah.
But it's great. Yeah. Very
Yeah,
effective.
and I'm not super, and I haven't sprayed it with a lac or anything yet. I know that's something I probably should do, but because I've initially I had put way too much chalk on, and then one of my obsessions is Google Maps. I spend I don't even want to admit how much time I spend on Google Maps, and I spend a lot of time peering down on highways and things. And quite honestly, this is a little bit modeled after the junction in Bruton, where the highway crosses over the railroad tracks. And I was amazed how little other coloration was in it. It was very bland. It was very uniform, other than some cracks and some normal stuff. It wasn't overly dusty or streaked up, or
you probably didn't have 12 cars backed up on each side.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway, that's my little railroad in a nutshell. So, and I don't know if there was some other questions about, I saw a few things flash up, but I wasn't quick enough to see what they said. Scenery materials, if that was one of them, just static grass. And again, I really try to avoid any of the bright greens. Kind of fall is my pick. I break out in hives if I think of the thought of covering a mountain with trees. So I intend to do. In fact, I'm going to use Thomas's technique about doing it on the bench and on a piece of foam. I've got a few corners and a few areas that I know I want to put in some. It's all scrub around here. We don't. It's not like we have big stands of oaks and beautiful historic trees. This was prairie lands, and then the crap grew up around the lowlands along the water. So it's a lot of scruffy brush, and that's right up my alley because I can knock that stuff out quick. But ultimately, you do have to have some stands of trees, and I look forward to that. I the trees I've used, and even my scruff stuff is all super trees. So
another good use of Google Maps too is pulling your reference models for stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Groups of trees and
100%. Yeah.
Brush 100%. Along the side of the right of way.
So this has been great. And the great part is that we're looking forward to having you come to the modelers meet and the convention to show us more things. One of the things that I'm planning on doing for the convention is bringing down a big television set and plugging a computer into it, so that if you have little videos, if anybody has little videos, and when the display hall's open, come and take a few minutes and show us what you're doing on your railroad, because it's great to go out and see railroads. That's what layout tours are for. But it's nice to be able to share them now through the wonder of video, and people with the cell phones can take a decent video.
Yeah.
And you say your videos are not the highest quality. Well, whether they are or not, I'm not going to argue with you, but what they are is they are a great report on what you're doing and a great way to share, because when something goes by on the video, somebody can say, whoa, how'd you do that? and
Yeah.
then we can sit there and learn from each other. So
It's fun.
so
And
please,
I don't have I'm literally 2 hours due west of Twin Cities. So I'm not exactly accessible when it comes to layout visit. And maybe someday there will be an opportunity to host some of y'all. And I would love that. It would be fun. It'd be a little bit intimidating, of course, but I know that that's not what this group is all about. But it's not easy sometimes to have accessibility to layouts. And that's why I'm excited to come you guys' way and rub elbows and see what you guys have done, because what I see on the internet and shared on the Facebook page for you guys, it's incredible, and I'm blown away daily by the talent, and I know I'm going to learn stuff because I already have.
yep. Well, that's great, and we do, like we said, when you get into town, just make sure you let us know you're coming, and there'll be people that'll open up their houses for you. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, anytime. You guys are all welcome to come to the farm. I've got a barn with
Okay.
a pool table in it too. So
Okay.
And
Well-
you're still living in the Bruton area, or
yeah. I moved back to the family farm,
okay?
kind of halfway. I guess I technically probably claim Sedan more. If it's not going to mean much to anybody unless you're a Sioux person. You might know where Sedan is, but
Well, if you get on the Sioux line with your high rail car and you head east, about the time you get 7 miles away from Shoreham, you're going right through my backyard.
no kidding.
Yeah.
I was just there I was down by what's that something Jarrow's, John Jarrow, what's the bar by Shoreham there that's known for the greenies?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, Tony
John
Yarrow's.
Yarrow's. John
Tony's.
Yarrow's.
John? Is it John's? Okay.
Or is it Tony Yarrow's?
I thought it was Tony's. Tony Yarrow's.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I went and listened to some bluegrass at the Astor Cafe last weekend. And then of course we had to go over to Tony's for a greenie. Model railroad visits were not in the cards that day because I was I was with my wife and my brother and my sister-in-law, and my brother's a hobbyist as well, and we're blessed with wonderful wives. I was this close to asking if we could head over to the hobby shop over on Lexington, or do a little. It was a weekend, so I'm sure there was nothing going on at the Minnesota Commercial. But
Yeah, I can't tell you that. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, you're getting lots of kudos, and they're well deserved. And we'll look forward to seeing you post more things on the Twin City Division webpage.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
congratulations on now being part of the NMRA crew.
Thank you.
I don't think you're going to have to get a lot more done, but then we'll come out and get you your golden spike, and then get you on the road to getting your achievement awards.
Yeah, hold on to that track plan for the
Yep.
civil?
Yeah, you know what? If I need to do anything, that literally. Well, when Michael was talking last night, I was so disappointed in myself that I didn't have a track plan to share. That I sketched that throughout the show, so I know I could probably do a little bit better.
Well, it's
Well,
good
for a lot
enough
of
for
those
what it needs
certificates,
to
that's
be.
what you need. You don't need
That's good.
huge
Yeah, and
e-size
honestly,
paper, and it's like
I
CAD
invite.
drawings.
Honestly, I invite people to make comments and critiques and suggestions. I take it all. I love it. Don't hesitate if you haven't seen or followed me on any of the social media platforms, especially YouTube. That's kind of where I've been gravitating a lot to now, aside from the Facebook pages. But YouTube has kind of been my go-to to post updates on the layout, and so
I've just been continually amazed. Like I say, it started 3 years ago, and it's continually ramping up the social media presence that we've been doing on
crazy.
the TC Twin Cities division.
I tell you what,
We got people coming in from everywhere.
the amount of tutorials on putting graffiti on trains, and some of these guys are just lights out, unbelievable weathering and painting. It blows my mind, the talent that's out there. And these are guys that you don't see in the typical hobby press. It's just a whole nother realm. But what they're teaching is top notch.
So are you creating your own graffiti, or are you using decals?
No, I actually created my own. Let me grab one here for you here. This one, it was actually a little bit of a Andy Dorsch from the Seconds podcast. I took this refrigerator car and I put door Ost for Mike Ostertag as a little bit of a joke. And okay, you want to talk about, again, rookie mistakes, right? And I should know better after doing it for so long.
Give me any ideas.
Prior to doing this, I had never once ever right in, and I'm not, it's not the greatest thing in the world. And I just started playing around, and then I did this side as well. But it's weird because when I did this stuff, I really was only starting to pay attention. I was just thinking it through my brain. And then all of a sudden I've done a lot more research and realized, there's a lot other ways to do it. This was all done with Sharpie paint pens. And since then I've added some thinner, just regular Sharpie markers to the palette and just trying to do a little more. And now I've seen dozens of tutorials that are going to, really, really guide me on future stuff. But kind of like a dummy, I just kind of dove right in and started playing around. But I figured it's graffiti. What the heck?
I wonder how many of those are like stenciled by one person in one town and then get finished up by a different person in a different town.
I don't know. I don't know about that, but I was sharing with the guys last night. There was a photo in my grouping of a Twin Cities and Western locomotive with a hopper that I took in Winthrop, Minnesota this past fall. And I didn't notice it at the time, but there was a little, like a very cartoonish type of head on that, graffitied on that hopper car. Didn't even think anything of it. Roll the clock forward, and the last 4 weeks I've been just doing a deep dive into graffiti on the internet and on Instagram. And I'll be damned if I didn't stumble upon at least one documentary, if not a few, of a kid who calls himself, I don't know, as a kid, he might be in his 30s or 40s, who calls himself the White Ninja. And most of these guys, when they document stuff, they do not show their faces. They don't use their real names because it is illegal, right? And I'll be darned if this White Ninja has a huge social media following on Instagram and documentaries. And I'll be damned. I was scrolling back through as I was looking for ideas for my cars. And I found that photo that I took in Winthrop, and I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. Here's this guy from Southern California, and I found a White Ninja application. And now it's like, once you start to realize that a lot of these guys, it's this huge community and they're famous amongst themselves. I keep looking for, Mecro and different guys that have these big names now because I follow their platforms. And so I'm again, one more thing to be obsessed about for me, I guess. So, but it's really, it's cool. I find it fascinating. And, as I'm looking at a model railroad that represents modern railroading in a very, very rural setting where it's industrial and farm, and there's not much pretty. The fact that I can apply some splashes of color and uniqueness to these cars. And one of the things I'm actually thinking about, and this is something I think to run by you guys. I don't know if everybody has shelf layouts. I know that most of my layouts I've done in recent years have been shelf style, but I'm actually considering only ever graffitiing one side of the car, so that I can flip it around and have it. Maybe that's not even an original idea, but I just to be able to swap out the car and not have that look of graffiti, because there's plenty of non-graffiti cars out on the line, and I want to be able to shake that up and not always be staring down graffiti. And I don't have 100 cars in my staging yard. I'm slowly building a modern fleet because I'm new to the modern era. So I'm starting off at literally ground zero. I've got a dozen cars. And so every car is an acquisition. and I have to make a real firm decision of how badly I want to, how badly I desire to paint it up. And
Yeah. So Greg, what's interesting about that is I had a conversation with some of the guys at North Metro about that. And the advantage of doing that is if you run it for a while with the graffiti out and you turn it around, for somebody coming to your layout, it's going to look like a different car.
yeah.
So that's good. I also in S-scale, there's a one of those Canadian cylindrical hoppers, and on one of them they painted a graffiti of a, I think it's a Nanook lady laying down. It's very tasteful, very artistic, and I put that on one side of my car, but I have to keep that to the back in case my wife or my grandson go down there.
Isn't there a famous graffiti painting of sort of a half-clothed woman laying down? There's something very famous. Was that a decal?
Circus City makes a decal like that.
Okay, because that's a real thing, and it's quite famous actually. Like I said, if you want a crazy rabbit hole, start looking at graffiti on. Oh my God! But and I'm really bummed out. Like last summer? There was a art show in Minneapolis featuring freight car graffiti, and the guy who was featured as one of the artists has the largest collection of HO scale graffiti cars known. And he's done them all himself, and it's like over 1,000, and he had them on display, and it's like, oh my God, totally missed opportunity. And I don't know if that was something that your NMRA division was aware of.
No,
here was a non-model railroad art show that featured freight car graffiti. So,
well, it's we could certainly have a contest at the convention for graffiti, but some people really take that umbrage to that, which is kind of funny.
But what year did it become to the point where you started to notice full scale graffiti on cars? I mean, it's always been there, probably back into the 30s and probably even earlier to some extent. But at some point, there's like a turn on switch there. I don't know what year that was.
Well, Tom, we were talking about it briefly last night, and I turned 52 tomorrow, and my youngest daughter got, how great is it when your children buy you train stuff? And this is a fabulous, fabulous book full of ideas and stuff that I can rip off. That history, it dates back, 100 years practically, because, the hobos and people traveling, they would not just mark cars, but there was a whole symbol language that they knew. Like if there was a cross on a post out front of a church, that indicated that they were willing to feed you, or they would mark little symbols on freight cars or at train stations saying, beware of, basically saying, hey, this isn't a friendly town. There's railroad bulls, and it was all grease pen. And of course, after the Dust Bowl years, that kind of, I think, fell by the way. There was probably still some, but like Thomas was saying last night, decades went by and it really wasn't a thing, aside from the most famous of it all was the 1970s New York subways, which got put to an end in the 80s when they were in the early 90s when they cracked the whip on all that. Then it transitioned back heavily to the freight cars. And if you watch some of these graffiti artist documentaries, they'll give you the whole trajectory, and it's pretty incredible, how they get away with it, quite honestly.
Well, like Firegrave mentioned in chat too, that back in the 50s and 60s they were clean, but how much of that was because the railroads were maintaining their equipment better and had more money to play with to keep the cars in better shape.
And Thomas made the comment as well, as when the railroads got rid of railroad police and a lot of those auxiliary type of careers, right? That precipitated it too, because there was less people putting eyes on people roaming around. And you think of some of the big yards, you think of Bakersfield and the huge yards that back up to residential areas along in Los Angeles along the 101. Not difficult at all, probably to find pockets where you can easily get on property and put your name. What I most marvel at is these guys. How do they do these full-sided applications? I mean, you have to.
That's what I was
carry
wondering if it's done all at once in one evening, or if it's like a multi-day or multi-month, multi-year process, or that they keep hitting the same ones over and over again. Or
they were, one guy who's quite famous out of Canada. He did it just as a lark. He was just an artist and then did it. And then he heard from someone in Southern California who had seen his car in Southern California. And then he's like, wow, this mobile art thing. And he felt he was onto something. And now 1,000 cars later, and he hears from people in Mexico, United States, Canada, all over that have seen his car. So it's become sort of this way for the art community to sort of, kind of stick it to the man, right? It's like, good art, right, is supposed to rattle the cage a little bit and, disrupt the authorities a little bit. And that's, it's, whether you love it or hate it, it's a part of the scene, and I think, I'm fully embracing it.
Roger Coleman, who just joined the audience here, is a connoisseur of graffiti, and I've heard him defend that. But he's kind of a Renaissance guy. He's a very artistic guy. So,
that's my kind of guy right there. I like
that.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I'd give my right arm to go visit Eric Bruman's layout. He's such a huge influence, and boy, what an artistic application, and everything about it is just so believable. And he's an artist himself. He's a high school art teacher, from what I've read in the hobby press, and power to him to do it his way. And he doesn't feel that graffiti is what he wants to, his vision. That's not part of his vision. And I have so much respect for that, And then I've seen the guys who just, it's like, it's just unbelievable what they do and what they capture. And I love the art.
So now, kind of staying on that for a second, if you go around to layouts in let's say you went around to 40 layouts around here, you would find some that they're so heavily weathered, which is prototypical, and it looks like every one of their cars has been dumped in a bucket of rust. And on the other hand, you're going to find people that love their cars nice and clean, and don't even want to put dull coat on them.
Or just too busy to get around to it.
Yeah.
Ask me.
I tell you, you see massive fleets of clean cars, and if it's, what's interesting, who was the guy? The Second Section did a podcast the other night that featured the Home Shops cars. And there's a gentleman is it the Quebec and Northeastern layout? I'd never really seen his layout. I guess he has a presence on YouTube that's pretty good. But the thing I noticed about his layout is that the cars aren't weathered. And if you look at the entire layout, it has a little bit of a sheen. It's funny because if it wasn't such a kick-ass paint scheme on the locos and this really dynamite looking operational layout, you'd think, oh my God, is that like a Tyco layout or something? Because there's just this kind of cool, but it's consistent throughout the entirety of the application, from cars to everything. And it's like, dang, that actually, that would take a lot of the effort out of it if you did that. Because
was that the Paul Belmore episode?
It was the one from this past Tuesday. The Home Shops was featured, and they had like 8 different guys on there. They had 8 different guys on there, and I forget the guy's name, but the name of his layout is the Quebec and Northeastern. Beautiful red, yellow, and black paint scheme. I mean, just dynamite. And but I didn't notice any weathering on anything he did.
Almost.
Yeah, it's fun to see how people do it. I'm a fan.
Well, guys, we've chewed up almost till 8:30, and I know if you're an old guy like, and I don't want to mention any names because he's bigger, taller than I am, but he's probably got to go watch the 9 o'clock news so he can get to sleep. This has been a great event and a great presentation, Greg. I appreciate that. Next month, again, we're going to be here with Pat Fleming, and we're going to talk about layout, command, control. Let's also, between now and then, take some pictures of anything you're doing as a project. Send them to me, info@TCD NMRA, and I will put a slideshow together, and then we'll talk about what we're up to, because it'll be February. You'll be well into the modeling season, and maybe you want to give us a hint of what it is you're going to bring to the modelers meet. So that'll be a lot of fun. So
yeah, and besides sending you photos too, post them on Facebook and other places, and any way to get the word out, I guess.
Yep.
And get on the Discord. I mean, there's more and more people joining that every day too. Even after the initial rush, there's still been a lot of people daily coming in.
Where do you find that on the website? Because I didn't realize.
If you go to the NMRA page, it's actually
the regional page.
I suppose. Yeah, the national.
Oh, okay. I'm a new member.
There's instructions on how to get in there. You have to have an NMRA membership number to get past the.
I'll be doing
past
this
the guards.
Well,
Gordy and Speed and all the national people hang out there.
If you don't see anything, they're right in the middle of doing their year-end audit, and so the poor ladies are a little
long. I can.
Yeah. So the reason I ask is, I get this monthly statement, and then I always send them back with a bunch of questions. Membership statement. I always send them back with a bunch of questions, and they were nice enough to answer. But then she said, "By the way, we're in the middle of the audit." And I went, "Oh, okay." Never mind. So good stuff, gang. And we'll see you all next month. We'll see you next Wednesday. We're going to have another. We're still going to do the Crossing Gate Live until the end of February, and next Wednesday is going to be Paul Bukowski, and he's rebuilding a layout. And I've got the whole list of who else is on there, but I don't know where it went. Then after Paul Bukowski, it's Greg Dahl's going to talk to us about the operating session. Then we're going to have Dave Menard and his gang from Eau Claire talk to us about the convention. That's going to be a lot of fun. Then we're going to have we did a tour, a railfan tour of the North Metro Model Railroad Club. That'll be on. And then the end of the month, our last one, we're going to have a bunch of special guests. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Don't if you got see, you got a cat, that'll make my dog, or is that a puppy? It's a cat. Yeah,
little Helmut.
Yeah, I had to shut my dog out because he always wants to come up and play with keys.
Oh yeah, this is demanding.
Yeah, and if you haven't been hitting the live streams on Wednesdays, make sure to check out the division website.
Yep.
I don't remember what it is, but it's
TCD NMRA.
How many members are in this division?
Oh, like 287.
Okay.
But they're scattered. The challenge with the region is the region goes from Eau Claire to the Montana border, from northern Iowa to the North Pole. So
we're the largest geographically, but like one of the smaller division or smaller regions.
Nanook is a member, huh?
He is.
So
Yep.
Our members per square mile is pretty thin compared to some of the East and West Coast regions.
So Chris, Chris has a question. Does the cat stay off the layout?
Yes, actually, he is a very good cat, and I've never caught him. I've never caught him on the layout, and it's amazing to me how many guys post pictures of cats on layouts
in tunnels.
Oh my God! I'd go a little bit nuts, but he's good. He doesn't mess around like that. So he's demanding, but he doesn't go on the layout thing. We'd have words. We'd have words if that was the case.
Ken Borowski sends us a reminder that says, send your events to get posted on the Twin Cities events webpage.
Which after Damien's work, the events page is the main page now for the division website. So as soon as you go to the main website, that's what you've got right in front of you.
Yep. So events at TCD NMRA.
It's a lot of stuff in there.
Yep. Nanook and Sasquatch, longtime founding members. I think they're part of the Old Goats Club. And
I think Bob and Doug McKenzie are members too, aren't they?
They are.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
We So it's going to be a great time. So folks, we're gonna punch out of the net here, and it was just marvelous seeing you all.
We'll probably just fade into non-existence here because we don't have any fancy music set up, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Greg, are you a singer?
I am actually.
High production quality is section crew would say.
Yeah, you know.
Happy trails to you.
There you go. All right, folks.
And on that note,
I'm gonna end this thing before we go crazy. We'll see y'all.
All right, thanks for dropping by, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Night.